Hey guys, welcome. My name is Prescott. I'm here at Psychcinct, Succinct Psychology, and today we're going to be starting Chapter 2, Research Methods in IO Psychology from the Psychology Applied to Work 12th edition textbook. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. So first things first, we have to start off with the learning objectives for this chapter. To understand the empirical research cycle, know the relative advantages and disadvantages of the laboratory experiment, quasi-experiment, questionnaire, and observation research methods, understand archival research, meta-analysis, and data mining, understand the purpose of organizational neuroscience, understand the value of qualitative research, understand the concept of correlation and its interpretation, understand the limitations of assessing causality, and to have an awareness and appreciation of the ethical issues associated with IO psychological research. So, quick overview. A lot that we're going to be talking about is generalizability. I might say that wrong. I might be saying it wrong already a lot of times throughout this chapter. But generalizability just refers to being able to generalize your research findings to a larger population or larger crowd. So making sure it's not like too specific. And we have the 3 goals of science, which are to describe. So describe, like what you're researching, what the problem is, the kind of phenomena. To predict, so, predict what your research is going to find, what's potentially could happen in your research. And then finally to explain, so explain your research process, how you split up your control and experimental groups, explain the findings, etc., etc. So we have the empirical research process. Just a quick little rundown of this graph right here. If you want to, you can pause it and look over it more. So you start off with statement of the problem, design of the research study, a measurement of the variables, analysis of data, and then conclusions from your research. And kind of loops back around because you just, in science, psychology, you're constantly, retesting and testing again just to make sure it's still accurate or if anything's changed. So step 1 in the research process is statement of the problem. So quick definition of a theory is a statement that proposes to explain relationships among phenomena of interest. Then you have inductive versus deductive method. Now, inductive refers to a research process in which conclusions are drawn about a general class of objects or people based on knowledge of a specific member of the class under investigation. So your conclusions are, again, drawn from just like one person or one object in the class of whatever you're investigating. And deductive is conclusions are drawn about a specific member of a class of objects or people based on knowledge of the general class under investigation. So, intuition, using your intuition or studying previous research, it's more broad than inductive. So why theory is important in psychology, and it's important because it integrates and summarizes large amounts of information and provides a framework for your research. You need to have a framework for your research. You can't just go in blind and just come up with it on the fly. I mean, try, but it's probably not going to be very well conducted research if you don't have a basic framework. And also, again, it kind of just integrates and it summarizes, makes it a bit more digestible, large amounts of information versus, having to have a 30-page paper about, with the information. You can just summarize it nice and brief with a theory. So step 2, we have the design of the research study. So research design is a plan for conducting scientific research for the purpose of learning about a phenomenon of interest or object of interest. Next, we have external versus internal validity. External refers to a degree to which, or the degree to which the relationships evidenced among variables in a particular research study are generalizable, and I might be saying that wrong, or accurate in other texts. And then we have internal validity, which is the degree to which the relationships evidenced among variables in a particular research study are accurate or true. So external, breaking that down a bit, external validity is, whether or not those relationships among the variables in your research study are generalizable, again, can be applied to other populations, other groups, or whether those findings are accurate in other texts. And internal validity is whether or not those variables or the relationships between the variables are accurate or true in that one study. So external includes outside sources, other studies, other research. Internal is just focused on the accuracy and validity of the findings in that one study. Next, we have the naturalness of the setting. Naturalness refers to not wanting to destroy or distort the phenomenon under study. So, for an example, studying factory workers at their factory rather than a more scientific or artificial setting. It's better to have a more natural setting, so then you're not inadvertently changing the behavior or the phenomenon that you're trying to observe through the study. Degree of control refers to how much a researcher can control the study being conducted. So sometimes researchers have a lot of control, like being able to directly manipulate factors in the study. So for example, going back to the factory workers, say the researcher is studying what levels of light are best for productivity, and they can directly adjust the levels of light in the factory and then record that from there. Example of a lower level of control would be something like a questionnaire, because say a student is trying to find differences in opinion about a certain subject between people over the age of 40 and under the age of 40. Now, if they hand out the questionnaires and nobody in their group they selected is over 40, then you can't answer the research question because you have no data, but you can't control, if you're using like random sampling, you can't control the age of the people that you questioned. It's a lower level of control. Next, we have primary research methods. So you have a true experiment, which is a type of experiment where the investigator manipulates independent variables and they randomly assign subjects to experimental or control conditions. Next, we have causality, so whether or not you can establish, in a true experiment, that's really important, causality, whether or not you can establish that one thing is causing another, and there's not some third variable that's affecting it. The next key is randomization. That's what makes it a true experiment, the fact that it's random assignment to different groups for the subjects. But there are some problems with generalizability. I feel like I'm saying that wrong. So there's a trade-off between the control and the realism. True experiment, you have more control, but you might be sacrificing some experiment or realism. So an example of like a true experiment would be, say, or this is from the textbook actually, and I just want to put this in here because I thought it was a good example of a true experiment, but in Brooks et al. 2016, they wanted to examine the effects of rituals. So like, some people, when they get stressed out, they'll have like a little ritual that they perform in order to alleviate stress. So, Brooks et al., they wanted to examine the effects of rituals on reducing performance and performance anxiety. So so they have one group perform a drawing ritual, and there were some other steps in it, like sprinkling salt and then saying something. And the other group just sat and waited before, and they had to sing. I forgot about that. So they were told, they had the two groups. One did the ritual, one didn't, before they were told to sing in front of an experimenter, and they were told that they would be scored on their singing. And the results showed that the experimental group, the ritual group, the ones that performed the ritual, performed better than the control group, or the ones that didn't do the ritual. So yeah, that's a good example of a true experiment I want to share with you guys. Next, we have the quasi-experiment. And quasi-experiment is a type of research method for conducting studies that does not involve random assignment. So again, that's the difference between a true experiment and quasi-experiment. Random assignment. Quasi-experiment, you have less control, less randomization, but more generalizability. So true experiment, random assignment, more control, less generalizability, quasi-experiment, no random assignment, but more generalizability. Going on from, well, actually, I think that's a good point to stop for today. We will continue this chapter in another video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it interesting at least. So yeah, again, my name is Prescott at Psychcinct, Succinct Psychology, and I hope you guys enjoyed and hopefully see you in the next one. Thanks, bye.